Hello everyone, welcome to today's BioAroundWorld event, April 19th and April 20th, co-organized by BioAroundWorld and MSQ Ventures. My name is Ziyan, a project manager at MSQ Ventures. It is my great pleasure to serve as today's host for the event. Thank you everyone for attending today's part 2 of our event. Part 2 will include 3 successful case studies and 1 expert knowledge sharing. I hope everyone here can enjoy the following 2 hours. Let's begin with the first case study from Overland and ADCT, hosted by Echo, the CEO of MSQ Ventures. Let's welcome.
Good morning, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining our successful case study session, Overland ADCT Biopharma. Today, I'm very pleased to join Ed Zhang, CEO of Overland, and Peter Greaney, head of BD at ADCT, to review the stories behind the transaction and the post-transaction and the Overland ADCT's feature. Hi, Ed and Peter, how are you?
Hi, Echo. All good, thank you.
Hi.
It's very nice to get you like this as friends instead of negotiate as both sides in 2020. So I just wanted to pick up 2 dates. It's very amazing, and it shows how faster you guys have been forming the joint venture and enrolled the first patient in China. So on December 14, 2020, ADCT and Overland officially announced the formation of JV. And then in April 2021, less than half a year, Overland ADCT announced the first patient dosed in China. And so I know is from the outside, everyone said that that's easy for you guys because backed up by Hill House. However, because I'm part of the transaction and I really witnessed how hard the 2 of your teams work together to achieve this goal. So let's just go back. Even how did you start to have such the idea of a joint venture? And because the joint venture have been the challenge, and everyone said that there's no successful case study yet. And I think you already made the big milestone for the first patient enrolled in China in such less than half of a year. So Peter, maybe you can start like, how did you and the ADCT management team decide to go with the joint venture idea?
Yeah, thanks, Echo. First of all, it's great to be here. It's great to share our story. Maybe I can start by just giving a sense of some of the key objectives that were there for ADC Therapeutics as we were looking at how to develop, in particular, Lonca, our lead program in China, and I think that will, you'll be able to relate to that then of why we went towards a joint venture. So, maybe some of these are a little bit obvious, but very important for us was obviously to launch Lonca in the greater China market as a leading non-Hodgkin's lymphoma targeted therapy. We as a company needed to access expertise, and a broad set of expertise. We think about clinical, regulatory, commercial, with the whole objective of getting Lonca to patients as quickly as possible in China and building on that through label expansions. We were also looking for a partnership where we felt that a partner would understand our bigger objective as a company and really being patient centric. And we were in that context looking for a partner who could really contribute to the global development of Lonca and contribute to the life cycle of Lonca. So thinking about how to move into earlier lines of DLBCL and additional indications. The other thought we had was, we're really fortunate to have a very deep pipeline of very exciting programs. So in our minds, frankly, we don't have the bandwidth to deal with all the activities in the Greater China area. And honestly, there's some specific expertise that was needed. So we were thinking, should we be applying this to more than just Lonca, and thinking about other assets in our pipeline? And we also saw a great opportunity, quite frankly, to access capital in China. So when we had these sort of objectives in mind, we ran, a very extensive process, and as one can imagine, we had multiple parties at the table, multiple term sheets for us to consider, and they were by and large typical sort of licensing type structure. But then we had some conversations around the idea of doing a joint venture, and when we thought about this and thinking about the objectives that I've just outlined there, we saw this as a really, a far more true collaboration where both parties would be really in this together, a real true co-development mindset, if you like, where both parties have good visibility of what's going on, and really a way to build not just near term but long term value for ADCT, and ultimately would be the best solution for patients in the market. So there's some of the thinking behind the reason we took the joint venture route.
Yeah, I remember actually we run the process almost more than half a year to help your team to understand the
right.
data. And then when you come to me to ask her to build a joint venture, actually I was a little bit surprised that the road, because ADCT just went to public that time, and of course get a lot of the successful capital. However, joint venture is still the very conservative conversation, and especially for the newly established team as Overland. So Ed, I know you were first is an investor to ADCT for the IPO, and then come up with the idea. I remember we socialized the ideas to licensing, to joint venture, and so could you please review the story behind it?
Yeah, first of all, I would agree with what you said earlier. There's no silver bullet point, right? Bullet about which kind of structure is the best structure, right? There's a pros and cons among licensing structure, the joint venture, and a co-development pack. But in the end of the day, what made our mind, I think it seems resonate with P, is that if our goal is to accelerate the global development, right, and bridging the innovation, right, between U.S. and Europe and China, Asia, and the joint venture will offer a unique, I think the foundation of a common interest between parties. When P and I discussed initially about the different structures, it can become very obvious that from ADCT perspective, they want a dedicated, partner who can allocate resources and prioritize, right? I mean, not selfish, just I think the nature of discussion can prioritize the ADCT program and accelerate the global development. So in that regard, we feel strongly joint venture will provide that kind of a common interest, right? Incentives with equity interest allocated exclusively between ADCT and Overland. Will have a strong common interest to move this forward. But devil in the details, I think when we discuss a joint venture, the terms and the structures such that there was definitely not straightforward, I have to agree, and it needs a lot of thoughts and discussions, alignment between parties. And in the end of the day, we very feel proud. ADCT P as a, build a trust, right? Trust in the company, Overland, and also our team. So in that regard, why we are negotiating this contract, we have a potential global trial that Overland can participate, but we have a very short window, right, to join and participate in such a global MRCT study. So I think I can imagine that was a big decision on behalf of P and ADCT to actually share a lot of confidential information with Overland and start planning the CTA filing in China. Why we're discussing the contract in parallel. So in the end of the day, long story short, and because this level of trust and a very strong collaboration spirit, we were able to file our first CTA, I think within a week after deal close. And even to this day, both teams feel very proud about that achievement.
And I remember the photo, Ed, of the team with the boxes that seemed to go up to the ceiling of the room full of the CTA.
Yeah, no.
I wanted to move back a little bit, flashback a little bit, is how, Ed, what do you think, what's the key factor or key important factor of Overland convince ADCT? It's not only because of the joint venture complicated new structure, but also it's a brand new team. I remember when I met you in New York City office, in the New York City office, we met together. We discussed about the ideas, your Overland, but that was not established yet when you started this conversation, right? So how did you put it together like a solid plan and convince the ADCT?
Yeah, it was not easy. It takes time. I'll have to admit that. You're absolutely right. It's a new team. But I feel there's probably 3 points I'd like to probably mention or highlight from my perspective. I love to hear what Pete thoughts as well in that regard. First of all, I think I hope we come across as a credible and trustworthy partner. So it's not by just talking, right? In that regard, I think we spend a lot of time really thinking hard how we can, again, same as a BioAroundWorld vision, how we can accelerate the global development, how we partner with ADCT, right? To at least plan out a trustworthy development plan, right? With a credible, I think the team and the thoughts behind that. I think that's probably Pierre agree. We did spend a lot of time to thinking between our teams, right? How we can accelerate the global development. So we spent a lot of time to sketch out the global development plan for different programs. And secondly, I would say we probably come across as a company can really put the ADCT program as a top priority, right? I think we have advantage over doing that because the fact that we are new, and we definitely can say and can really prioritize, right, all this ADCT kind of programs on the top of our list, right, of effort. I think that's probably resonated with P and his team as well. I think thirdly, I think I have to say we are not a typical biotech, right, because we are backed by Hillhouse Capital, right, and I think as a successful leading long-term investor, when we built out Overland, we did invest in the team. I think from the very beginning, we accelerated hiring, right, over credible and capable developed team. And even before, right, before we did the deal with ADC Therapeutics. And in that part, I think probably timing works out at the point we have enough, I think, the team and the capability to tell our story, I think, which is that they win the ADCT's trust and consent to set up this joint venture.
So now we can compare notes. Pete, what's the what do you agree with the Ed or what's the critical parts make convinced you and your management team to accept this new team?
No, I fully, it probably won't surprise you to know I fully agree with Ed. I mean, I think this has been the foundation of the relationship, right? I mean, Ed just rightly so spoke about the trust, and it's really people. At the end of the day, when you're setting up a collaboration and you're trying to do a deal, you're doing a deal to get to the collaboration, right? But really, the two work is hand in glove, right? So if you don't get the people component right from the beginning, you will you'll have problems in the future. So there's a big emphasis as we put in place, collaborations to make sure we're doing it with the right people, build up that trust, make sure there's a cultural match. I think what we saw in that context from Overland and colleagues there was this attitude that's, I think, similar to ours, which is, get things done, be transparent, have trust in the system, and be nimble. So that was the people component. The other component that I'll really just echo what Ed spoke to was really about having a dedicated team. We were fortunate, like I said, enough to have had an incredible amount of interest in Lonca and the pipeline from multiple players in China, including very, very large players. And something that was really obvious to us was a lot of these companies had enormous, and still do, enormous pipelines. And so it begged the question, at what point is Lonca and the other programs, if we were to put them in there, going to be the shiny new toy, if you like. So we were really impressed with the attitude that Overland had around putting a dedicated team in place to focus on the ADC programs. So I think that was a really important component. And I think the third area, and Ed mentioned this as well, to be fair, around being Hill House backed, and that's not just thinking with the dollar signs and having a capital sort of access mindset. It was broader than that, and the interactions we had with many of Ed's colleagues at Hill House were very fulfilling, very rewarding, and we saw that they could bring more than just capital, which is obviously important for drug development, but they could bring a network, and it's really quite an extensive network, and not just across China, but obviously that was a critical component as well, as we think about making sure we have access to that expertise that I mentioned earlier as about a key objective. So I think it really was people, the dedicated team, and focusing on our assets and the network, in summary.
I cannot agree more about that. Actually, I remember after receiving the first term sheet was like about 1 or 2 months. We have been back and forth to say if the team is ready, Overland team is ready. But I was very impressed by Ed's quick reaction and always try to understand what ADCT is looking for and how to put a resource together to meet the expectation. And then actually the team did a great job to present in the very, easy understanding way. I think this, to be honest, probably everyone thinks that's easy to put. If you have resource, you put together, other side can understand. But there actually, Peter, do you remember we dealt with a lot of the top pharmaceutical company in China, right, and globally. However, not so many team can put it together and present it to their partner what are their resources? How can they achieve the goals? They are, most of them are focused on themselves. What do they have? But actually is not related to the targets or to the partners, what they are looking for. So that's why I always joke with Ed. I say he's a deal closer, is also, he's always thinking other side, what they are looking for, and how can we to meet the middle ground instead of just say, I need to win. So I think such the, like you said, the attitude is really inside of the heart and how to work together.
It is. It's really critical, and I think that it's because we saw that they were true to their word, that you build up that sort of strong relationship of trust, and that translated into, as Ed mentioned, we were collaborating as we were doing the deal, and this led to ultimately patient benefit because we could get longer to patients in a clinical trial in, I even forget the time frame now, but some ridiculous short time after the deal was closed. I mean, it was, we're talking weeks, right? So this is a cultural, mindset that we shared.
Yeah, maybe I'll add a few comments over there. I agree. This is probably beneficial for our learning and for our audience here as well. I think my two cents over suggestion is when we're working with the partners, right? Especially from different kind of contact, different culture, right? And I think it's important for us to really appreciate and understand our differences, right? Obviously, there will be culturally, maybe working style or way of dealing with things a bit different, which is normal, who we are, they're fine. But it's important to kind of all the time thinking about from others' perspective, right? In the end of the day, I feel, Pia and I doing probably business development for a while. I think the key success factor, I would say, for the long-term success is to really understand each other, right? Understand what we are looking for. It's not about get deals done. It's about how we going to execute it, right? Our deal structure, our collaboration, and so it's very important to really understand, what not just we want, but also what the other party wants for the long-term success. I really strongly suggest, I think our colleagues, our audience, to think more and more about that. You don't want to get a deal done by paying the price over the long-term kind of miss over something.
Can't agree more, Ed. Absolutely. And you bring up a really important point about culture. And there's, I think we talk about culture in the context of the different culture within companies, but I think, certainly from my perspective or our perspective at ADCT, there was another cultural element here, and that was across geographies that was new to most people.
True.
So listening to what why people are operating the way they're working because of backgrounds, etc. It's so critical to drive success. It's just building up an appreciation of where people are coming from. And I think, Echo, this is where you were an integral component of making this relationship happen, right? As we worked closely with you to help us understand, why, what can we do here? Why are they thinking that, etc. And just being that sort of confidential sounding board, as in any deal, you go through, ups and downs and hurdles to try and jump over. So yeah, I think that's an important component there as well, to appreciate the cultural aspects across different countries.
Yeah, and I think during that time, negotiation was actually like from started May, but with summer was off. But during that a few months, the three of us like back and forth. I remember every morning I wake up talking to Pete in the afternoon, early afternoon, talk to Ed, and the two of you will have a call, a few calls, and then I joked I'm more like a psychologist to two of you. To sometimes I need a comfort. You guys do you remember like sometimes it's very interesting, just like because I see both of sides and how easily get emotional during the negotiation to fighting for the points. Not so important just because I want it. However, I think that's I just very proud of that we built such a relationship together. Is how trust you give to me and willing to listen to me and especially what's the background there when I explain to you, especially for Pete, right? Just like said, the ADCT whole team does not know China so much. Do you remember the first time I met you, Pete, was like told me China, and then advisor and 2 points. You kind of like none of them I'm interested, and by the end actually is like Ed just said, it's not only just close the deal. Actually, I'm very proud. It just I build such a relationship between two of you. It's not the just negotiators, but actually it's to be like friends. It's literally, even we did not, three of us never sit on the table, see each other in person as a team. But this friendship, I think, is so deep and meaningful.
No, I completely agree, Echo. You say something very, very important, I think, for the audience to understand there, that we have not sat round a table face to face. Ever.
Never. Yeah. I know, it's amazing.
It's amazing. It's just really bizarre to think, because all of this happened during COVID. And I think that puts an even bigger emphasis on that sort of personal touch, that interaction, building trust, the relationship. And certainly it's harder via whichever video platform people use. But I think we did it.
Yeah, I think I would add that both P and I really appreciate Echo, you and your advice and I think kind of help during that process, which I found it is quite important, right? During some discussions about contract and negotiation. I think to some degree, you know, right, ADCT, P team, and their probably back then, their vision, what they want more better than me, right, and my team. I think you come across as a very, I think, respectful and understanding party in the middle, which I thought is important, especially P and I couldn't meet a lot of times, and we spent time, a lot of time on the phone. I think having a advisor in between, I think, play a very important role for our successful kind of partnership at the end of the day.
Thank you. I think that's mindset. It's really two of your mindsets, like willing to listen to others is very important. And also, I think the ad really just whenever there's information about ADCT in the news or everything, and you take it serious, you consider it, how can you integrate it to the future plan, right? Just like their clinical trial plan and what's their challenge there. At the same time, Peter actually was, just as I said before, like spent probably already more than half a year working with my team to understand China. When they get into the negotiation process, actually, is already half of expert. Peter was half expert of China, and the team truly understand what's going on there. And also, I think Overland team was very generous and share everything. Not only just say, you should come with us to work with us, but your team did a great job in showing the whole picture, what's going on in China, what can you do? I think that is really critical part. So let's do something spicy. I know, as I said, there's several moment actually. I even myself was like nervous, was going to break. I remember sometimes people come to me say, "Oh, that's no way we can close this transaction." Sometimes Alex said, "I don't think they wanted to close the transaction with us." However, the truth behind it is not what you thought, right? And so why or how, or do you remember such a moment?
Pete, you want to start?
After you, Ed.
I think now I recall, I think the nature of this complex, I think contract discussion, right? There's, as you know, people doing this for some time, there's always some sticking point during the contract discussion. I think the one thing I still remember vividly is about non-compete, right? Peter, probably you recall a non-compete clause.
Yeah.
So which I think I totally understand why we need such non-compete, right? I think as we discussed early, and the ADCT want its partner to, you know, put their program on highest priority, right? Understandably, and in order to avoid kind of conflict, right? We need a certain non-compete clause in the contract. But I think in the beginning, I think it's always the case. It's about how broad and how narrow and how practical, right, those non-compete clause are. And I think in that regard, and Pete and I did spend a lot of time talking about non-compete, and because I think in the end of the day, we really thinking about it from both perspectives, right? We spend a lot of time talking about, you know, why I think for a new company, it's hard for us to commit, you know, to not to do a lot of things. It's very hard. We don't know, right? We cannot predict, you know, 10 years down the road. And from P perspective, it is critical for us to, you know, to avoid a certain conflict in our corporate development. So I think we spent a lot of time discuss that. I think in the end of the day, what made us reach agreement is, I think, is understanding both sides, right? And it takes a bit of time to kind of to finalize the clause. But I think as long as we have, I feel today now, back then, as long as we have a common interest, right, to really accelerate development, bridging innovation for patients, and if that's our goal, and we have a way to address this. And I think we successfully did that as well. It takes a bit of time, but you know, but we did it.
Yeah, I think you say it very well, Ed. I mean, every deal has sensitive areas, right? That you know, or each company has their own areas of sensitivity, and I think, you know, the way to get over that is, again, just being transparent, have the conversations, and as long as you know there's a mindset of trying to find solutions, which I think both Ed and I did constantly have that mindset. You have an idea, we're on the phone trying to find ways to make this work, because obviously we're at the front of these deals, but there's always a lot of people behind deals, right? And that we're trying to frankly negotiate with as well, right? To find the solution for each of our companies. But I think having that like-minded approach to finding solutions and acknowledging that this is a sensitive area. Let's try and find the right way forwards, and I think that's why we did ultimately.
Maybe one more specific, probably more technical suggestion, which is we you know, maybe to our audience as well, we should not let a legal to manage.
Good point.
The moment of the discussion, right? Sometimes it is a business decision, and we have to take the responsibility and make the decision. You know, I think we're all using internal and external counsel, legal counsel, but I think we operate at a different incentives, I would say, right? And if a business discussion, if a business decision, and we should make the decision, right, for the best interest of our products, our company, and we should not let legal to navigate or to manage, right, those tough discussions.
I think that's a general golden rule in my mind for any deals that are done. It's it's business responsibility. It lands on that, and again, it's a relationship thing. Ed and I could pick up the phone and say, "Is this really an issue, or is this something you've been done?" And then we could figure out, do we need to go back and just have a conversation on our own end before getting back on the phone with the bigger team. It's a really good point, Ed.
Yeah, I think today you're trying to be nice to each other.
We always are. We always are.
Nice.
Yeah, we always nice to each other.
Actually, if I can share, I have 100 pages notes of negotiation between two of you.
Really?
Okay.
We better be now. We speak most weeks, right, Ed? So
absolutely, yeah, I'd agree.
As I have to put it this way, it's very like I could say this is very complex of the transaction. Actually, we got it done in probably half a year from the May to December, and was like 1 month off for the Europe in summer. So I think because we were nice to each other, you too, and then that's how we close the deal in such a short time, and also protect each party's benefits.
And I think it was managing the process, which I think was again, it comes down to the culture of the companies, right? That we still are nimble, right? We're nimble organizations. I think the important point Ed just made about working with the legal side, these components are, I think, probably even more imperative when you think about the complex nature of the deal that we did. It wasn't just a plain vanilla licensing deal, right? There was a joint venture across very different mindsets, from a legal aspect, business aspect, culture, etc. So yeah, I think that's important to note.
Yeah. Okay, because of time issue here, let's just put the last few minutes talk about the future. As you guys are building the very the historic timing to close the deal and have the first patient dosed in China. And so what's next?
I think, yeah, I can start. Probably what's next is really deliver, right, what being discussed and promised, right, and with a goal again, same as the BioAroundWorld vision to accelerate development and really bridging innovation, brings those truly differentiated therapy to patients. I think we are race against the clock. So in the past year after deal close at Overland, with a very strong support and collaboration from ADCT, we are able to submit 4 CTAs, right, within a year, and all 4 of them approved without any delay. Actually, some of them got approved ahead of the deadline. And we also have 2 trials ongoing now, right? And the first, bridging pivotal trial, first patient dosing happened within 9 months after deal close. So again, we appreciate the team's effort and also ADCT support. Unfortunately, right, with the COVID situation, and we are facing some challenges, including supply chain. I just working with team to solve the issue, which is true. I think with the COVID situations, we are going to face some challenges to help the patients, right? So I think both parties working on that to solve the issue. But I strongly believe there was always hiccups, right, along the way with any relationship, between parties and between persons. As long as we share the same vision, right, to bring the innovation to patients, we will solve the issue. I think in that regard, I think we should be open-minded and always, as we discussed, have a good, collaboration spirit and think about other people's, our partners' perspective. And as long as we have those kind of mindset, we will be successful and bring those innovative therapy to patients in need.
That's well said, Ed. And I was smiling when you said to deliver on the promise, because I think we're already delivering on the promise, and you've nicely outlined really the evidence to support that. I think if I can add to that, another area is that we're always learning, right? I think we got off to a great start. We talked about the culture, the relationship, and getting the collaboration up and running in parallel to negotiating the deal. This really got us off to the races, right? But it doesn't mean there's not areas where we can always keep learning, keep improving. I think we have a great governance model, but we already made changes to that during the collaboration, as we could see, oh, this doesn't work as well as it could do. How about if we make this, little change here, and then let's try it, and having that continued attitude of being transparent and saying when things aren't working, we should say it's not working, and find improved ways of working together. And I think just to layer into that, as you were mentioning, Ed, like the not physically meeting, I think that has a major impact, actually, maybe more so than some appreciate, that our colleagues have not been able to build that sort of relationship that you get as easily from sitting down having dinner or having a drink at the bar or whatever. So I think it's really, a big testament to our colleagues of how hard they've worked on communicating, spending time on these video type conferences to make things work as well as they have. But I personally look forward to the time where we can more easily go and sit in the same room and frankly visit our sites, right? Because I think then I can only imagine what could happen beyond what is already working very, very well. Yeah.
I'm just so happy for two of you and the teams actually work out, and also just Ed said, deliver. I really like it, and deliver on promise. And so that is how the relationship can be continued, and also can build such the future together. And thank you both so much for such a review, some of the secrets, even the stories never shared before here. And I think it's really to help build such the learning and the knowledge sharing with all the audiences, so can help the audience better understand what's the story behind such the headline story. Is not come from the nowhere. It's really come from all the hard work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Echo. Yep. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks again for everyone joining us today. So if you are interested in this topic and want to learn more, you can reach out to us or Ed or Pete. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you. Okay. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Echo, Peter, and ED for your wonderful case study. Let's welcome the second case study from Samuel Zhang, the Chief Business Officer of NeoImmuneTech. Let's welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for your interest. Today, I would like to discuss how to maximize your assets value for deal making based on what we have done over the last 3 years. First of all, let's take a look at the common biotech deals and key drivers. The first type of deal I would call the preclinical proof of concept deal. This deal typically has $25 million or less in upfront, plus development and commercial milestones, and normally have single-digit royalties. The key deal driver includes scientific value of the pathway and the desirable biochemical property of lead compound. I would say for this type of deal, our industry is pretty good at. The second type of deal I would call post-clinical proof of concept. This typically has $100 million or more in upfront, plus development and commercial milestone, and the royalty typically are double-digit. And the key deal driver are compelling clinical data in high commercial value treatment settings. I'll say that this is the area actually our industry is struggling and need to improve on. The third category of deals I would call commercial stage assets. And these typically have even bigger deal size, but sometimes they're not. And the key deal driver including sales result, the market potential, and competitive landscape. It's really about what is the expected economics of the assets. And I would say that in order to achieve this, you really need to do really well in compelling clinical data in higher commercial value treatment setting, which is a key driver for the second type. So if you can do the second type well, and then you can reach the third category very, very efficiently as well. Hence, today I'm going to focus on the second type of the deals, the post-clinical proof of concept deal. In fact, I'm going to focus on how to generate compelling clinical data in higher commercial value treatment settings. And here again, there are two scenarios. One scenario is that you can leverage clinical proof of concept achieved by your competitor with the same mechanism of action. There are plenty of examples in our industry, including large pharma. For instance, Merck really leveraged the clinical proof of concept data of BMS to really move their PD-1 assets to the clinical. However, many times we found that we're not that lucky. We actually have to generate the clinical proof of concept data on our own. This, in essence, is the challenge for the biotech industry, which is how to transform cutting-edge science into breakthrough medicine. So for an early-stage biotech, what you have is strong science. Hopefully you do have strong science, and you have high-quality lead assets. You have investor support and experienced management team, and these are required elements for success. What we want fast is strong clinical data that indicate a registration path in a large commercial potential, and in the meantime, we are preparing our manufacturing capacity to launch the product once we reach market. This is exactly where we found NeoImmuneTech about 3 years ago when I joined in May 2019. The company was founded in 2014, based in Rockville, Maryland. We just raised $92 million in Series D, and we're quickly expanding in personnel and operations. And we have an experienced senior management team with very rich large pharma experiences. Our lead asset, NTI-7, is the only long-acting IL-7 in clinical testing, and we strongly believe that it is uniquely positioned to address unmet medical need in immuno-oncology and beyond. Briefly, IL-7 is perhaps the most important cytokine for lymphocyte development survival. It can enhance immunity to cancer as well as infectious diseases. In fact, back in 2009, IL-7 was ranked as one of the most promising novel IO mechanism actions, right behind CTLA-4 and PD-1. So what did we do? The strategy we took was we start with the scientific strengths of our molecule. And then we identify significant unmet need that the science can help address. From there, we further profiled the needed product profile to succeed competitively, and we discovered efficient and effective clinical development paths to demonstrate that product profile. And then we prioritize on clinical development feasibility, probability of technical success, and market potential. And of course, it's very important that we know what kind of risk we're taking and why we're taking that risk. once you have your strategy in place, then you really need to execute that strategy quickly. And this entire strategy requires an integrated cross-functional understanding and collaboration. Let me elaborate on how exactly we did that, starting with the science. So IL-7, as I said earlier, is perhaps the most important cytokine for lymphocyte development and survival. In fact, it is the cytokine that helps in hematopoiesis, that is the blood cell generation, for the multipotent progenitor to commit to the lymphocyte lineage, and then specifically help the lymphocyte progenitors to develop into T cell and natural killer cells. In fact, without IL-7 signaling, 99% naive T cells do not survive to maturity. So based on this science, we believe that NTI-7 can have a broad therapeutic potential. For instance, in immuno-oncology, it can combine with all T cell target therapies. That would include the checkpoint combination with CAR T, TCR-T, T cell engager, cancer vaccine, other cytokine, chemo, radiation, etc. And it probably can play a very important role in infectious diseases as well, particularly for infectious diseases that does not have effective antiviral or antibacterial treatment in place. Or alternatively, it can combine with effective antiviral or antibacterial therapy. Furthermore, it can be used to enhance vaccine, and it's also being implicated in treating sepsis or prevent sepsis. Of course, just play directly from its biology, it could play an important role in immune reconstitution, for instance, acute radiation syndrome, bone marrow transplantation, for instance, to mobilize stem cells. And also for immune reconstitution, it could be important for CAR T and TCR-T as well, particularly when immune depletion is used as part of the regimen. As a small biotech, of course, we have limitation on resources, both human resources and financial resources. And therefore, of course, we need to prioritize. And so we first focus on immuno-oncology. And here we think NTI-7 can really be an ideal combination partner for checkpoint inhibitors as well as other T cell target therapies. First of all, it is the most important cytokine for T cell development survival. I mentioned earlier, 99% of naive T cells do not survive to maturity without IL-7 signaling. And in addition, IL-7 expands TCR repertoire utilization for immune responses. And very, very critically, for both infectious disease and immuno-oncology, IL-7 play a critical role for memory T cell differentiation and survival. Furthermore, IL-7 has been shown to sustain immune response to chronic antigen through the stimulation of the so-called tertiary lymphoid structure. Obviously, these are very, very important to combat tumor or infection. And it is also important for lymphocyte homing to tumor and infection sites. So based on this mechanism of action, IL-7 has really differentiated mechanism of action from other cytokines and can be an ideal combination partner for checkpoint inhibitors. In addition, as a so-called homeostatic cytokine, it also has excellent safety profile. IL-7 in its natural form, however, is very difficult to develop as a therapeutics, and therefore we did two types of engineering. The N-terminal engineering really enables high stability and high productivity of IL-7. It keeps IL-7 molecule active. And the C-terminal engineering, the so-called high-Fc fusion technology, really extended the half-life in vivo, and therefore improved the PK/PD profile significantly. As a result of this both N-terminal and C-terminal engineering, we were also able to improve production, CMC production yield up to 126-fold. And with this engineering and intellectual property right protection, NTI-7 can offer NeoImmuneTech and its partners exclusive competitive advantage, particularly if it's proving clinically. Now I have discussed how to start with the scientific strengths of the assets and then identify a significant unmet medical need that the scientific strengths of an asset can help address. I'm going to go into a little bit more details on how to understand the needed product profile to succeed and discover efficient and effective clinical development paths to demonstrate that needed product profile competitively. And then based on that, prioritize on the clinical development feasibility, the probability of technical success, which is basically what kind of risk you are taking on and why you're taking that risk, as well as the market potential. And then you develop your strategy and to execute on your strategy. The first business opportunity we look at is so-called immune hot tumors, checkpoint-treated patient population. This is a $15 billion per year business opportunity or more. And what's very attractive here is it has a very low efficacy bar, basically 5 to 8% response rate, and has limited competition. With a low efficacy benchmark, that means if we see compelling response rate, that can clearly tell us that the combination is improving over the monotherapy, for instance, and therefore help avoid challenges previously seen with IDO or PAC-IO2 as single-arm study, as they are testing in the immune checkpoint naive patient where the response rate is already high. So even if you see a pretty good healthy response rate, it's still very difficult to tell whether that's just because the sample selection or it's actually something that your assets is helping contributing. And because of low efficacy bar and limited competition, it has a fast market possibility. Even a single arm with 25 patients could help achieve clinical proof of concept and really pave the road for accelerated approval once more patients are enrolled. And because it has high clinical feasibility, high scientific merit, and large business opportunity, we believe that this is a prioritized opportunity to pursue. The key uncertainty is whether IO can work at all in CPI-treated patients. The next business opportunity we looked at was so-called immune cold tumors. Again, this is a $15 billion per year business opportunity. It's actually 3 of the 4 large tumor types are so-called immune cold tumors. And in 2 of the immune cold tumors, the pancreatic cancer and so-called microsatellite stable CRC colorectal cancer patient, it has a really low efficacy bar, basically 0% response rate. And this so-called immune cold tumor are the holy grail of novel IO mechanism action. And because PD-1 does not work here, so if a novel IO mechanism action can help PD-1 to work here, that's really basically helping to expand the frontier of immuno-oncology and really have a great halo effect because everyone is going to pay attention to. And similar to immune hot tumor but CPI-treated patient population, it has a fast market possibility. A single-arm study with 25 patients probably can help achieve clinical proof of concept. And if a compelling clinical response was seen, then accelerated approval is possible with more patients enrolled. And based on this, basically high clinical feasibility, high scientific merit, large commercial opportunity, we also feel this is a prioritized business opportunity to pursue. And here the key uncertainty is whether additional checkpoint is needed for IO to work. So that's a risk we're taking. The last business opportunity we prioritize is the so-called immune hot tumor checkpoint naive treatment. And this is a large business opportunity, definitely more than $30 billion per year opportunity, but it does has a high efficacy bar. It can be anywhere between 30 to 50% response rate. And we would need to compete with various combos. And here, we may need a randomized trial to demonstrate clinical proof of concept. And in addition, we will need phase 3 randomized trial for approval, and quite a large phase 3 perhaps. And in this particular setting, the IO has achieved tremendous success already, and it's largest but competitive market, and it's a longer development timeline. And therefore, we are also in this space because it's the largest commercial potential, but we are ranking as a priority number 3. Now we have our strategy in place. The next is speedy execution. For business priority number 1 and number 2, we strike a clinical collaboration with Merck very, very quickly. For business priority number 3, we strike a clinical collaboration with Bristol Myers Squibb shortly afterwards, and then with Roche, actually a second clinical collaboration with Roche. And therefore, we had clinical collaboration with the 3 largest IO leader in the world to develop NTI-7. And we execute in record speed. For the clinical collaboration with Merck, we initiated the discussion in June 2019, 1 month after joining NeoImmuneTech, and we had a tentative agreement 2 months later, and we had a definitive agreement 4 months later. And then while we are discussing the agreement, our clinical teams are working together to develop the protocols, and therefore, as soon as a definitive agreement was signed, we were able to submit the IND to the FDA, and in 30 days, and we got a clearance. And then, despite the COVID hit in March, we were able to enroll the first patient just 5 months after IND clearance. We were initially scheduled to have first patient first visit in April, but because the widespread clinic shutdown, and it was postponed by 2 months. As soon as the investigator site reopened, they start enroll patient. And in just 1 year later, we were able to report the dose escalation data at ASCO. And then 18 months later, we reported initial efficacy data at SITC last November. And we reported provocative initial efficacy result at SITC 2021, just 18 months from first patient dosed. Here, in both MSS-CRC, or microsatellite stable colorectal cancer, and pancreatic cancer, as I mentioned earlier, there was no clinical response expected from pembro alone. And however, we were able to see 3 out of 17 evaluable patients in microsatellite stable CRC cohort treated with NTI-7 in combination with pembro achieved partial response by iRECIST criteria. And furthermore, in pancreatic cancer, we also see 1 partial response. And in the CPI treated patient monotherapy, as I mentioned earlier, you really expect no response. So we are very, very encouraged by these results. We were also able to connect science with this clinical collaboration, and therefore further strengthen the credibility of this initial efficacy signal observation. Hence, at this time, for immune cold tumors, we have provocative early efficacy signal in microsatellite stable colorectal cancer. We also see early efficacy signal in 2 additional immune cold tumors, pancreatic cancer and high-grade glioma, which I did not show the result here. We are actively investigate NTI-7 in PD-1 progressors, and as well as PD-1 naive patient population. So to summarize, we start with the scientific strengths of our assets, and we identified a significant unmet need that the scientific strengths of the molecule can help address. And then we take a deep dive on the needed product profile to succeed. And from there, we discover the efficient and effective clinical development path to demonstrate the needed product profile. And we prioritize based on clinical development feasibility, probability of technical success, as well as market potential. And then once we have a strategy in place, which requires a lot of integrated cross-functional understanding and collaboration, and we went to speed execution. And so in just within 2 years of striking the clinical collaboration, the first clinical collaboration, we were able to demonstrate provocative initial clinical efficacy signal and was able to connecting signs with that initial efficacy signal observed. I hope you'll find this case study helpful. And here's my contact information if you would like to have a further discuss. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks, Samuel, for your wonderful case study. Let's welcome the third case study from Stephanie, the Chief Business Officer of Galecto. Welcome.
Thank you to MSQ for the opportunity to present to you today. My name is Stephanie Oestreich. I am CBO here at Galecto, and I'm very excited to speak to you today about galectin-3 inhibitors in cancer and fibrosis. Please note our forward-looking statements. Galectin-3 overexpression and LOXL2 are associated with worse outcomes in cancer and fibrosis. Galectin-3 is a 30 kilodalton beta-galactoside binding protein, a unique member of the conserved galectin family. The expression occurs mainly on epithelial cells, macrophages, and activated T cells, and increased galectin-3 in tumor serum and lymph nodes is associated with metastasis and worse prognosis in several cancers. Increased level of tumor galectin-3 significantly drives the hallmarks of cancers. It reduces cytotoxic T cells, but increases the resistance to chemotherapy and also checkpoint inhibitors. It increases the extracellular matrix proliferation, angiogenesis, and cancer stemness, as well as M2 macrophages, cell proliferation, and metastatic potential, but decreases apoptosis. Galectin-3 is a key driver in multiple oncology indications since it modulates tumor growth and immunosuppression in the tumor microenvironment. Galectin-3 expression also predicts response to pembrolizumab. It increases PD-1, PD-L1 binding through a direct effect on binding. You can see here that patients with high galectin-3 expression non-small cell lung cancer show higher tumor growth and less response to checkpoint inhibitors, shown here in red, than low galectin-3 expressing patients shown here in green. So high galectin-3 expression in patients with non-small cell lung cancer strongly correlates with tumor resistance to pembrolizumab. There's actually overlapping biology in fibrosis and cancer through galectin-3 and LOXL2. Both are master regulators that are fueling key pathological pathways in both of these indications. LOXL2 is especially important in collagen cross-linking and therefore in fibrosis, whereas galectin-3 drives a number of pathways in cancer, but both have overlaps by downregulating apoptosis, upregulating M2 macrophages, and cell proliferation, as well as angiogenesis. Galectin-3 also impacts key elements in the fibrosis cascade, and this is inhibited by galectin-3 inhibitors. You can see here the effect on macrophages, but also on epithelial cells, mesenchymal cells, fibroblasts, microfibroblasts, and on collagen. At Galecto, we're developing galectin-3 inhibitors in cancer and in fibrosis. Galecto is a clinical stage public biotechnology company listed on the NASDAQ, and we're committed to the development of novel small molecule therapeutics for the treatment of fibrosis and cancer. These are targeting Galectin-3 and LOXL2. And we also have a wholly owned broad IP coverage, including composition of matter into the late 2030s, even without patent term extension. We have a deep clinical pipeline with meaningful upcoming catalysts, with 3 phase 2 trials in IPF, myelofibrosis, and liver cirrhosis ongoing. Our lead asset, GB139, is a potentially first-in-class with FDA and EMA orphan drug designation. And we are about to start a phase 2 study in non-small cell lung cancer in collaboration with Roche. Our cash balance allows us to complete all of these phase 2 trials. Here you can see an overview of our clinical pipeline. GB139 is our inhaled Galectin-3 inhibitor that we're developing in IPF. Here we're currently completing phase 2b enrollment, and the planned readout is in the middle of 2023. GB2064 is our oral LOXL2 inhibitor that we're developing in myelofibrosis. Here we're also completing phase 2a enrollment currently and have a planned readout in the second half of 2022. GB1211, our oral Galectin-3 inhibitor, is about to be tested in non-small cell lung cancer together with atezolizumab from Roche, and we expect readout in the middle of 2023. We're testing the same molecule in liver cirrhosis and have recently completed enrollment in phase 2a and expect data readout in the second half of 2022. Galecto has a very experienced management team with multiple years of background in both biotechnology and pharma companies. And our oral Galectin-3 inhibitor, GB1211, increases CD8 positive T-cell recruitment and therefore activation in the Galectin-3 rich tumor environment and potentiates the checkpoint inhibitor response. We have chosen non-small cell lung cancer as the first indication because of a very high unmet medical need, because Galectin-3 is a very promising target that predicts overall poor survival and also response to checkpoint therapy, and because checkpoint therapy is for treatment of non-small cell lung cancer very well established. However, 40 to 60% of the patients don't respond to therapy, but Galectin-3 inhibitors show both anti-tumor effects, T-cell activation through LAG-3 blockade, macrophage polarization, and increased apoptosis. There are multiple opportunities in oncology for Galecto, since Galectin-3 plays a central role in cancer. Inhibition of Galectin-3 may have important anti-tumor activity as monotherapy and also in combination with checkpoint inhibitors, chemo, and radiotherapy. Galectin-3 is a negative regulator of immune cell function and drives low checkpoint inhibitor response rate. GB1211 is a specific oral Galectin-3 inhibitor ready for phase 2. And our collaboration with Roche on our upcoming non-small cell lung cancer trial will be the first trial for GB1211 in a solid tumor indication. And we plan initiation in the first half of 2022 and top-line data readout in the middle of 2023. GB2064 is a oral LOXL2 inhibitor that we're testing in myelofibrosis. LOXL2 is an enzyme that links fibrillar collagens and is important in the collagen formation. GB2064 therapy could therefore potentially be disease modifying in multiple fibrotic indications. Myelofibrosis is an orphan indication with current therapies, the JAK inhibitors, that are not disease modifying, but it's a very large market with multi-billion sales opportunity. There's ample evidence for a central role of LOXL2 in fibrosis and cancer, and GB2064 potently inhibits LOXL2 and therefore shows antifibrotic activity in numerous models. Our current phase 2A trial could generate both target engagement and efficacy data, as repeated biopsies are already standard practice. The phase 2A trial started in Q3 2021, and we are expecting top-line data in the second half of 2022. IPF is a very large orphan indication with suboptimal treatment solutions. There are approximately 100,000 patients in the US, 68,000 in EU5. It is a progressive, irreversible, and ultimately fatal lung disease characterized by decline in lung function, which is measured by forced vital capacity. The lung tissue scars and becomes non-functional, and median survival is 2 to 5 years. Death is caused by respiratory failure, and the causes are unknown. There are 2 approved drugs, pirfenidone and nintedanib. Both, however, have side effects that make less than 50% of the patients stay on treatment. However, they are still multi-billion blockbusters. We're therefore developing GB139, our inhaled galectin-3 inhibitor, as a potentially groundbreaking novel treatment for IPF, an orphan disease with poorly tolerated treatments. The inhaled delivery directly to the site of active lung destruction allows that it reaches the target cells in the lung at high concentration and causes a dose-related reduction in the cell surface deeply within the patient's lungs. There's a promising biomarker trend observed in phase 2A study and validated by EMA as clinically relevant in IPF patients and as a basis for orphan drug designation. GB1211 is our oral galectin-3 inhibitor that we're developing for liver cirrhosis. The prevalence is 2 million patients in the US, 3 million in the EU. It is a severe progressive liver cirrhosis, ultimately leads to severe liver failure. It's caused primarily by NASH, alcoholic liver disease, and viral hepatitis. Median survival of 2 years for decompensated cirrhosis, and there are limited treatment options, including liver transplantation. There's ample evidence for oral galectin-3 inhibition in advanced cirrhosis. Galectin-3 is elevated in alcoholic and non-alcoholic cirrhosis and in toxic hepatitis. Galectin-3 is a prognostic biomarker of hepatocellular carcinoma, a known complication of liver cirrhosis. Preclinical data suggest galectin-3 inhibition may address cirrhosis. Inhibition of galectin-3 reduces development of fibrosis. Galectin-3 is also required for TGF-beta mediated fibroblast activation and matrix production in liver fibrosis. And galectin-3 inhibition reduces YKL-40, a biomarker that is elevated with progressive liver fibrosis. Extensive preclinical evidence for galectin-3 exists as a key driver in fibrosis in many organs. Therefore, we at Galecto have completed a phase 1 successfully with GB1211, our oral galectin-3 inhibitor. And we're developing this molecule currently in a phase 2A study since the Q4 of 2021 and expect top-line data in the second half of 2022. In summary, Galecto is a clinical stage biotech company developing small molecule drugs targeting 2 essential proteins in cancer and fibrosis, galectin-3 and LOXL2. We have 4 phase 2 programs for which we expect readouts by mid-2023 and are funded into the second half of 2024. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks, Stephanie, for your wonderful case study. Let's welcome the expert knowledge sharing from joint state partner, Tony. Welcome, Tony.
Hello. By now, I know you have attended sessions of business deal-making case studies about the cross-border pharmaceutical deal-making relating to China. And today, I'm going to use 20 minutes to talk about the IP aspect of pharmaceutical deal-making relating to China. And I'm going to use a PowerPoint presentation to help explain the topic. I'm going to share my screen now. All right, I hope you see my screen. And what I like to share with you is a new IP landscape relating to pharmaceutical deal-making in China. And that relates to pharmaceutical patent listing in China since China amended its patent law in June of 2021. So this is still less than 1 year old, but it's already having a huge impact on drug licensing deal making in China. To put it simply, patent now is a critical part of successful drug licensing relating to China. And if you have no Chinese patent, likely there is no deal. And the reason is because of the reform Chinese government implemented over the last 5-6 years in drug procurement, in national reimbursed drug list, that is the government system, the government pharmaceutical insurance scheme inclusion of new drugs for reimbursement, and then later the National Health Security Administration, when a drug has lost the patent protection and generic competition has entered the market, NHSA will organize a volume-based procurement of the drug, and NRDL negotiation and VBP bidding created two very steep drug price drop, or what I will call it patent cliff in China. When you do not have patent protection, or your pharmaceutical patent has been successfully challenged by a generic drug company, and 2 or more generic competitor enter the market, and the VBP is organized for the drug, sometimes you will see the price of the drug to become cheaper than water. And this is the one, here I'm giving you one example for the diabetes product, metformin. And what that means is that pharmaceutical companies in China now have to plan their business along the line of how to stay away from patent cliff in China for as long as possible. Because once you fall off the cliff, then your pharmaceutical franchise in China may be severely curtailed. And the way you determine how far away the patent cliff is in measuring or forecasting how long of a patent protection period you have from the time the new drug is estimated to be approved for launch in China. And here I'm using a example where sometimes the patent exclusivity period in China could be much shorter than this for the same drug in the United States. Sometimes a fraction of the exclusivity period in the United States. And that could be a major hurdle for the potential licensee to pull the trigger to do a deal with you. And if they find out the exclusivity period is short, way too short, they will hesitate to do the deal with you, or they're going to negotiate the price down significantly. So how do you know or how the potential licensee will go about estimate how long of a period patent exclusivity will be for a particular drug? The tool people now use, for approved drug, since July of 2021, is the China's patent information registration platform for marketed drugs. And here I provide the website that is maintained by China's CDE. And this is equivalent to the Orange Book in the United States. And to make it easy to understand, I call it China's Orange Book, which take care of patent listing, patent the publication of patent listing information, and also the challenge from a generic drug company in terms of patent declaration. And to give you an idea of the breadth of China's Orange Book, since it was launched in July of 2021, it covers all the most valuable drugs marketed in China, including both chemical drugs and the biologics, and also TCM in that sense. And when a generic drug company go about applying ANDA, these days, they must go through a patent declaration process, much like in the United States, under the Hatch-Waxman Act. And so because of this new system since July of 2021, these days when potential licensee enter into the due diligence phase of drug licensing discussion, they invariably ask these three questions. Question number one to the licensor will be, do you have patents for listing in Orange Book? Now, understand that in many cases, the drugs are not approved in China, but the generic drug company will ask, when your drug is approved some years down the road, will you have patents for listing in Orange Book? And now, it's not good enough that you have patents for Orange Book listing. They also care about how many years of protection your Orange Book patent will provide from the time your drug is estimated to be approved by Chinese FDA. And then the third question is that because the Chinese system provides generic companies to challenge Orange Book listed patent, the potential licensee will also ask, can your Orange Book patents withstand invalidation challenges? This is a particularly serious issue in China in that the invalidation rate of pharmaceutical patent in China is quite high. It's about 50% of the time when a pharmaceutical patent is challenged, that the patent gets invalidated, and that's according to statistics of recent years of pharmaceutical patent invalidation decisions. So I'm going to use a few minutes to describe China's system, so you get some idea, and then you know how to engage your counsel, and ask your counsel to get to give you the proper support as you prepare for a drug licensing deal making in China. I mentioned that China's patent law was amended June of 2021. And in this patent law amendment, a new article, Article 76, was added to the patent law. And this Article 76 provided that innovator company can sue generic drug company when the generic drug company apply for regulatory approval, copying the innovative product. And this lawsuit can be brought before the generic drug is approved by NMPA. And if the innovator is successful, then the generic drug will not be approved until the Orange Book patent has expired. And this, mechanism will give the innovator a very concrete, exclusivity period. So you do not have this competitor on the market to take away your market share and drive down the price while your Orange Book patent, has not expired. And the three branches of government put out specific rules in July of 2021 to implement the patent linkage rules in Article 76 of the new patent law. And these are NMPA, CNIPA, meaning the Chinese Patent Office, and then the Supreme People's Court. Now here is a summary comparison of China's patent linkage system and that of the United States. And the two systems have a lot of similarity in terms of the listing of patents. Therefore, the public see which patents are listed under which innovative product. And the system also are similar in that it provides a generic drug company to file 4 types of patent declarations. The fourth type is a direct challenge to innovators' Orange Book patent, and then in terms of where you bring lawsuit and when you bring the lawsuit, how much time the system provide for the a stay of the end approval process at Chinese FDA to allow Chinese court or the Chinese Patent Office to make a decision on this patent linkage litigation. The system also provides incentive to generic drug company. The first one that is successful in challenging the Orange Book patent. And the Orange Book platform performs these three functions. Function number one is for the innovator to submit their Chinese patent for listing. As soon as their new drug is approved in China, then there is a window for the innovator to list the Chinese patent. And then the second function is that CDE will use this platform to publish the Orange Book patents under each innovative product. And then the third function is for generic drug or biosimilar companies to file patent declaration, and the platform will make their patent declaration public on this platform. Now, in addition to the Chinese CDE's maintained website, which is only in Chinese, you can find a certain commercial product that will provide you the same information in English and in Chinese. And this pharmaceutical patent radar offered by General Biologic, the GBI, is one such commercial product. Now, you may ask what type of drug patents are eligible for Orange Book listing. And here I'm giving you the eligibility requirement. For chemical drugs, three types of patents are eligible. And they are pharmaceutical compound patents, composition patent, mostly cover the formulation, and also method of use of your chemical drug, or we also call it indication patent. For biologics, the scope of eligibility is much narrow, and right now China only allows sequence patent of the active biologic ingredient, and also the method of use patent to be listed in the Orange Book for biologics. And for generic drug company or biosimilar company, and they have to select one of the 4 types of a declaration for each Orange Book patent of a drug they plan to copy. And these 4 types are very similar to the paragraph 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the US system. And here I'm going to use one example of a diabetes drug from AstraZeneca to illustrate Orange Book patent listing and the generic drug patent declaration. And for this particular AstraZeneca product in China, AstraZeneca listed 4 Chinese patents in the Orange Book. And let's take a quick look at what type of patents AstraZeneca listed. The first patent is a chemical drug compound patent. And then the second and the third Orange Book listed patents are composition patent covering formulation of this drug. And then the fourth patent AstraZeneca listed for this drug is for the medical use of this pharmaceutical. Now, several generic drug companies filed patent declarations. And I will just show you patent declaration type from 2 generic drug companies. And the first example I show you is from a company called Hindle Labs. And vis-a-vis these 4 Orange Book patents, you see that for the first compound patent, they elected to file type 3 declaration, which means that they are not challenging this patent. They will wait for this Chinese patent to expire before they ask Chinese FDA to give approval to generic drug company, generic drug. And for the other 3 Orange Book patents, they filed type 4.2 declaration, meaning that they claim they have successfully designed around these 3 patents, and they believe their generic drug does not infringe these 3 Orange Book listed patents. In another generic drug company's patent declaration, they filed their declarations are different. Well, vis-a-vis the first compound patent, Sichuan Guowei Pharmaceutical, they made the same selection as Hindle Lab, that is type 3. They will wait for the compound patent to expire. But as to the other 3 types of a patent, their decision is to challenge the validity of these 3 patents, meaning that Sichuan Guowei take the position that these 3 patents should be invalidated. Okay, so this give you a very high level overview of that, and your counsel, your in-house counsel, and also your outside counsel will be able to provide the necessary detailed analysis. Now, just give you at a very high level several common patent problems that cause deal making, to slow down, and sometimes, may make the deal making fall through. And sometimes the licensor just did not file patent in China. And here I'm giving you some examples impacting on very, very valuable pharmaceutical product. And the second phenomenon is that the licensor has patents in China. However, the patent claims are very narrow. Sometimes they are so narrow as to not even cover the product they plan to bring to China. Or the patent claims are not eligible for listing in Chinese Orange Book. Earlier, I talked about the particular types of patents that are eligible for listing. And another phenomenon is that companies sometimes they just copy the patent claims from their cases in the U.S. and Europe, without thinking too much about whether claims granted in other countries are suitable for China or not. And sometimes these claims cover drug administration method, drug dosage. These are things that the Chinese patent system does not protect or does not give proper credit. And then the fourth being that companies fail to appreciate the significant chances of invalidation in China. So not to scare you away, I want to encourage you that you do your homework as you plan your deal making in China. You want to obtain many patents in China, like the example I gave you for AstraZeneca. They managed to list 4 Chinese patents, not 1, not 2, 4 patents. So that means they, will be getting multiple layers of protection. And then when you go about apply for patents in China, you want to do that in anticipation of a future generic drug challenges. And last but not the least, China's patent law amendment also includes a patent term extension provision that may give qualified pharmaceutical patent up to 5 years of patent term extension. So you also want to build your patent portfolio and look for opportunity for patent term extension. And with that, and I hope this presentation give you some idea for you to improve your chances of having successful deal making in China. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Tony's IP expert knowledge sharing concluded today's event. Thank you very much for joining us today. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us through WeChat or visit our website at msqventures.com. Thank you for your join today.